Our next presenter tonight is came on the fly. We had an emergency come up. He couldn't make it. Mike Mulder's under the weather. So Mark Fee is filling in. He is an inspector and will be able to answer some of those questions you all have of what inspectors look for, what are they looking at. An inspector can either be your best friend or your enemy, depending on which side of the transaction you're on. So with that introduction, I will bring on Mark. Thank you.
Hello, how are you tonight? My name is Mark Fee. I'm a local professional inspector. I live here in Peachtree Corners. I've lived here for the past 18 years, and my background is basically in construction and infrastructure. And for the last 10 years, I've been a licensed inspector. And I work with a friend of mine who's he lives downtown, and currently right now, we're a non-advertised business. We are currently #1 on Google and Yelp. So we work basically by referral only. When we go in to do, I'm sorry. All right, sorry. When we go in to do an inspection, our job is to, as professionals, come in and let you know about your house. We usually work for the buyer, but we can also we can also work for the seller also. What I mean by that is when we come in, I come in to do a professional inspection for you. I'm looking for basically safety issues of a house. I want to make sure when you go into a house, there's not safety issues. There's quite a few, let's say, utilities or structural issues. We do everything in a house that a normal homeowner would not go in and look for. I'm like that wasp that gets into those little nooks and crannies that you never go into. I'm in every space that I can possibly get to. Inspections are, and all inspectors, we basically do visual inspections, what we call non-invasive inspections. We can only report on what we can see. So when we do these inspections, people ask us, hey, what do you see behind here? Or, it's like, I wish I had that infrared vision, but I don't. But my partner and I, we do have cameras. We do have infrared cameras, and we can tell you, if there's moisture behind a wall or if there's hot spots being wiring or anything like that. And we get into a lot of homes which are a lot older. Being from the Peachtree Corners area, we know that most of the houses around here, I live in River Station, if you're familiar with the area, our houses range anywhere from 25 to 30 years old. As the other panel members here have mentioned tonight too, a lot of your utilities and say like your HVAC units, your condensers, your water heaters, everything like that, basically the shelf life of all those units are about 15 to 20 years. And you can find them older, but they're not as efficient as in today's standards. So you can go buy, a HVAC unit, and that unit would, let's say it could be a 13 SEER, or you can buy up to a 16 SEER or 18 SEER unit, and those units, as you get higher, they cost a little bit more. So with that said, you want to make sure that you're buying units that are not, too high in price for your house. You don't really want to spend a whole lot of money, which you would never get out. But that all depends on if you plan on staying in that house for a long time. When I do inspections, I go in there and I also always recommend that you check out a home inspector's credentials. Make sure some of the first things you do when you look for a inspector is check his credentials. Make sure that they're licensed. Make sure that they're bonded. Make sure that they have affiliations with like a governing body. Like I'm a certified member of ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors. Because said with that is they require us to do continuing education every year. You're looking at 20 hours of continuing education, and then we do ride-alongs with people and things of that nature. When we go into houses, we try to sit with the client and tell them what we're looking for. We're not going into a house to tell you that we like the color of the walls or anything. We're going in there to find deficiencies with the house and try to give you our best professional opinion of things that are wrong with the house. So if you're selling or you're buying, it works both ways. If you can have somebody come into your house when you were getting ready to sell your house, you could pick off a lot of things that are required by the city codes, city or county codes. Like, a lot of people don't know that gas-fired appliances, or specifically fireplaces, require flue blocking or damper blocking, and that's a safety issue. The reason why is if you do not keep your dampers open and you should ever get a gas leak in that fireplace, there's nowhere for the gas to go but into your house. When it's in the house, a simple spark could ignite it and just you have a bad situation. So there's a lot of things that inspectors have to be aware of. People don't understand that, but we go in and try to evaluate the working condition of all the units. We try to go in there and say, okay, this unit's working well now, but it's 15 years old and it may be nearing the end of life expectancy. But then we recommend that you have people come out. Say if your water heater was starting to have rust around the bottom of it, you may want to have a plumber come out and take a look at it and give his professional opinion, because we are not specialists in any of those areas. We're more of a generalist, so we can tell you how the units work, we can operate them for you, and then we can try to give you our best professional opinion and then work from that point on. There's a lot to tell you. I'm sorry I'm not as prepared as these other gentlemen. I was just called in to do this real quickly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You were talking about visual inspection and the limits of your skill. Part of that visual inspection, do you have anything in the way of structural engineering to bring to your inspection?
Well, most inspectors aren't structural engineers. We tell you if there's a problem with a structural member of a house, say of a roofing member, a joist, anything like that, we tell you to see a structural engineer. My background is actually in construction. So I've built infrastructure for about 20 years. So I can most likely tell you how to fix things, but that would kind of be, I'm not certified to do that. Let's put it that way. That's what I would recommend, seeing a structural engineer. I could say, hey, this joist on this roof rafter is broken. It's got a hairline crack from the end all the way down. And then I would have you see it. But what I would do too is I try to walk on every roof that I can get on. If it's over like a 412 pitch and it's 3 stories high, I'm not going to get up there. My insurance just doesn't allow that. But if I can get on a roof and walk and see bounce, or we have an issue. So because you're looking at it from both sides. You're on a roof, you feel bounce, you go on the other side, you crawl through the attic, and you can see that a member's broken. Then I would say you have an issue and you should probably get this checked out. So, like I said, I wasn't as prepared. I have a million pictures that I could show you of things that you would never believe when you do an inspection, because I'm all over a house like an ant. But I can make a lot of recommendations for you, like, pulling your foliage definitely away from your house. The biggest thing I see, and 90% of the stuff I find on houses that need to be repaired, is because of the outdoor elements. I go around the house and I'll find, damaged siding, and it's because, people pile, ground cover up to the bottom of your siding. And if you know anything about, elements, everything is porous. Concrete's porous, wood's porous, your skin's porous. It wicks. So when you get water or ground cover next to the wood, that's why you always walk around the house, and they recommend 6 inches of clearance from natural grade up to your siding. Well, when people put, your pine straw and your mulch and they build it up against the side of the house, that stuff is put down to hold moisture for your plants. So when you put it up against your house and that holds moisture, it starts wicking up your house, and you'll see all the bottom of everybody's, their siding rotting. So when I go and inspect the house, I charge a few $100s or something to do an inspection. The turnout on that is when people sit there, and I work with a lot of the local realtors, they turn that over, and you have to go get that fixed on your house. It turns into thousands of dollars. To repair that stuff. So like I say, the biggest things that I could say to people is, look at the safety issues in a house. I'm sorry, go ahead, Janice, I'm sorry.
What are some of the things that a homeowner can do if they're preparing to sell their house? Like, what can they visually look for? Like, just like the
Oh, the siding?
like in the attic, maybe. Is there something that they're looking for?
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I go off on tangents, but I apologize. Yeah, when you're preparing to sell your house, or if you're going to sell your house, a lot of things that I can say that you can do is, one, like I said, keep foliage away from your house. Insulate your pull-down attic stairs. That's heat loss. You pull down an attic stairs or let's say a scuttle hole. There's no insulation up there. You just have heat escaping into the attic. What you're trying to do is, control your indoor living, climate. So, there's other things people don't know that are required things, like on your hose bibs on the outside of your house. If you have a hose bib, and this is one of the big safety issues that I come across, and I probably catch it on 90% of the older homes. When you have a hose bib that comes out of your house and it's for hooking a garden hose to, and say your child's out there and he's washing his new car. It's a white car or something, and he has some bleach in the bucket. And somehow that hose gets into that bucket, and that hose is higher than what that spigot is, that hose bib. You just created a natural siphon, and you just put all that bleach in that bucket back in your house water that you're about to drink. So they have, I think Home Depot and Lowe's have made a new career on, putting in these what they call as backflow prevention valves, so the water can't siphon back into your house. There's a million little things like that are safety preventative measures, and I was going to put it together on our website just so people could take a look at it, because we're not out there to try to break a deal or anything, but it's basically the safety of the home that we're looking at. We want to make sure when you move into a home, the first thing that you do is you have an issue. You move in or you move out, or somebody moves into a house, and the next thing you know, you have to replace a water heater or your HVAC unit, and you just go, oh man, I just spent $250,000, and now I have another $5,000 to replace the HVAC unit. If you have a good inspector, he's going to be in there, and don't believe any inspector that's in and out of your house, in an hour and a half. I come in and I inspect them like they're my own. It's my reputation on the line, and I do not go in there and refer people that I haven't used before in my life. It's just, that's who I am. I'm sorry.
Do you generally recommend those home warranties?
Read the contracts very well, because I've had the home warranties for myself, and when you have a home warranty, they'll take in consideration a lot of things. I had a leak in my basement, and it basically turned out to be a pressure reduction valve, but it let so much water into my house that the new tanks for your water heater that are now required, what they call expansion tanks, they're set to a factory standard of 80 psi. There was more water coming from the street than that expansion tank could handle, and I was away for 3 days. And that expansion tank, that's the seam split on it, and when I tried to call American Home Shield, they came out and said it wasn't the expansion tank that broke, it was actually the pressure reduction valve, and that's not covered under your warranty. So there are a lot of things like that, but I can tell you one thing about the warranties. If you have a plumbing issue, say if you have a toilet that the flapper valve, or you hear the toilet running. If you have one toilet in your house and that one's leaking, when you call them up, they're going to charge you $75 to come out to fix that. just tell them all three are leaking, because they'll only fix the one that you're talking about when they come out. So just try to get your money's worth out of it.
You piqued my interest. What's, in your days of inspecting, what's something you see that's just, caught your eye?
Well, I inspected a house. I inspected a house, and, well, let's put it this way: when we find a dead body, the inspection's over. But we did not find a dead body, but it was a meth house, and there was dead animals in the attic area, and it was infested with bats, and there was enough fecal matter in that attic to pretty much call the inspection quits. It was very bad, and it was a beautiful house, but it needed a lot of work, and it's just, you never know what you're going to get into when you're crawling underneath a house, and you're up against a possum or something like that. But there was a dead possum that was probably this big in this house, and it just had blown up from the heat, and it stunk to the high heavens. I was like, okay, that's enough. Sure. Yeah, it's required. If you have a gas-fired fireplace with wood logs or logs in it, the damper is basically the valve that acts like a butterfly valve. It lets the smoke out through the flue. There's a clip that you can buy at Home Depot. What it does is it keeps that damper open at least 3/4 of an inch. So if something should happen to that gas line, that gas goes out. The gas is going to rise. So if that damper's closed, it's going to come in through the glass doors or your screen. There's other things that are recommended too. If you have things like a washer and dryer on the second floor, they require it. If you have living space underneath it, that you put a pan, a drip, like an overflow pan, and it drains to the outside. Because if that machine malfunctions, you got a mess on your hands downstairs. And I can't tell you the amount of times people have went away, and then I go in to inspect the houses, and I mean they have we're talking $20,000-$30,000 worth of damage. So my job is basically to go in there and look for safety issues. I look for a lot of trip fall hazards. The decks are a big thing. Make sure your decks are decks don't fall away from the house. Decks fall into the house, because they're not secured to the house properly. If you look at houses that are 30 years old now anymore, they require through bolts. You can't have lag bolts. Lag bolts will back out. You either have to have carriage bolts or lag bolts, and they have to be spaced within 4 feet on center, and they have to be into the house. So there's a lot of things that I look for when we go out and do inspections. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience, a lot of people have, knowledge of that stuff, but, I'm just trying to, tell people what they can do, and what I see, and what they can take care of on their own to when an inspector comes in, check all your doors, check all your windows, make sure they open, and if you do that, you'll eliminate a lot of your headaches, a lot of your problems, because that's going to be on the report. And when a buyer comes in and they look, and they come back with a list of 50 things, and they have pictures to prove it, you're going to say, go get a contractor and ask them how much that costs to fix all those things. I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars, because it's not so much the materials to fix stuff. It's the labor to make that happen. So that's pretty much all I have. I'm sorry I'm not as well prepared, but I hope I could give you some knowledge. Sure.
You and other inspectors, do you have a list of qualified people that you can present to homeowners, so that when you go along, you say you need to have these things looked at or fixed? Here's a list of people. I'm not pushing them. They're just a starting place for you to go to.
Yeah. As I said before, I use certain people that I would only use myself. And when I use these people, I've used them to build out my own house, just because I didn't have the manpower to do it. And I was the president of our homeowners association, for quite a few years as Janice. And, some other people from my neighborhood know, we went hard on it, and we actually enacted a homeowners association, which we never had, and it was the best thing we ever did, and it's holding up our home values greatly because we're watching other communities. But I have had contractor that I worked with before, and he's a really good guy, and he came down and did our pool house, and I mean, they took out the concrete and fixed rot, and he hates me because I was on his butt every day because, hey, you missed something here, that's just me. But as I said, if you get an inspector out there and he starts quoting you prices, inspectors should not quote you prices. They're the one, they're generalists, and they're not the ones going to be doing the work. So, definitely get, somebody that's worth it. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, work with your realtor too. I mean, and like I said, and when I do an inspection, I make a lot of recommendations, and people can tell me to go fly a kite. But my job is to, when you start spec'ing 1,000 houses, they get pretty repetitive. You can see what the issues are, and people just don't know. And that's what we try to relay the word, is just trying to give you information about your house, which you should know, because the next inspector that comes in is going to tell you, hey, you got a problem with your venting or something like that, and it ends up costing you a lot of money. So hopefully I was able to share some. Sure, one. Are you Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, I see your picture quite a bit.
But one thing I will say, whether you are buying or selling the house, it is to your advantage to pay for the repairs, because there are multiple ways of fixing anything. If somebody was selling the house, they may want to go one way, but if you're buying it, you'll leave there another way. To pick an extreme of the furnace that may have a cracked heat exchanger.
Right.
That you can replace just the heat exchanger and have a good working furnace, or you may want to go ahead and put in a whole new furnace.
Right.
So just think about that and how the repairs are made. I mean, we are assuming that whoever makes the repairs is going to do the right job in the first place.
That-
There are just different ways of doing it.
That exactly. That's why we always ask, when I put my inspections together, I always say to see a licensed or qualified, person that basically specializes in that field. If it's HVAC, if it's a contractor, if it's a plumber, it's best, because if they say, if you have an inspection report and you want this fixed, well, the people go back and they might nickel and dime it and fix it, but it might only last for a while. Who's going to go back and re-inspect that? How do you know that it's been fixed correctly? I mean, this is what you run into. So if you had your own choice, you would probably want to fix it yourself, and then know that the contractor that you worked with is, it's him, it's you and him working together to get it fixed, because if not, then you're done. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you to Mark.